Hi, and welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing women's unique challenges in the tech industry. I'm your host, Limor Bergman Gross, and this episode is part of Season 3, themed Negotiate Like a Woman. Today, I'm happy to share that we have an amazing guest, Lindsey Witmer Collins. And Lindsey is a software architect, startup investor, and the founder and CEO of WLCM App Studio, a multi-award winning software agency. Lindsey says in the episode that recognizing and overcoming biases in the workplace was a game changer for her. It led her to build her own successful tech agency and help others do the same. In this episode, she shares her journey from being underestimated to creating a successful business. So you'll gain valuable insights on navigating biases, mastering negotiation, and turning setbacks into opportunities. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hi, Lindsey. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate the early morning right after dropping off your kids. So thank you.
Yes, sure. I just got them out the door, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And I wanted to start the conversation with talking about what you told me earlier about some of the biases you faced earlier in your career. And you mentioned that despite you had impressive qualifications and achievements, you're sometimes dismissed or not taken seriously. Can you share some specific examples from your early career?
Yeah, and honestly, truthfully, after I graduated from college, kind of at that point in my life, I really didn't have a ton of awareness around biases. I wasn't really all that well educated or around this, and but my first job, my first real job, was in Washington, D.C., and I was working for a consulting firm. Um, I was paid $30,000 a year, and I was living in D.C. My rent was about 60% of my income, and, I think they decide that you're broke if you pay more than 40% of your income on your housing. So I was like very, very broke at that rate. Um, I had graduated from college with having collected a bunch of trophies, right? And I did this through high school too. I was just an achiever, and I did all the things and got the great test scores, um and in my first job I made $30,000 a year. At the time I didn't realize how broke I was going to be with that amount of money. But I had about a year of that, and then I asked for a raise, specifically to make 32,500 a year, which wasn't really gonna move the needle, but on it felt like that would be a big deal on principle to make just a little bit more. Um, and there was a lot of hesitation to give me more money, not from my direct manager who I worked with, but from the owner of the company above that who didn't work with me. Um, and I didn't really fully understand why it was so hard to give me that much of an incremental raise. But I knew that my manager was really frustrated that she was having a hard time getting this for me. Um, and she gave me the feedback that the owner of the company thought that I was, quote, lightweight, um, like intellectually, like not very smart. And that really stung to hear because, first of all, it's not true. Like, if you just look at straight test scores, like here it is on paper, like here's, I'm scoring in the top 95% and all this, in analytical writing and, you know, that, like, almost ace that whole part of the test. So, there's sort of like these, I could say, oh, I'm smart, but I'm like, hey, I've got the numbers to prove it. And also, like, this award and that award and da da da. And also, I spent a year, like 2 years abroad, etc. It didn't really matter, because the way that I was coming across, which after further reflection, I wore bright colored clothes. I had a big smile on my face. I was really cheerful. Um, and I was kind of little, right? And so, and I'm a woman, obviously. And the owner of this company was also a woman. This like um the patriarchy, like we're all sort of we're all swimming in the same water, male or female. We hold these biases ourselves, even if we're women. But anyway, it was just, it really stung. And also it was very informative. Like, okay, like basically how to be taken more seriously, how to carry myself to be taken more seriously. And at the same time, is it fair? No. Is it right? No. Is it the world I'm living in? Yes. And also what I decided there, it was so hard to ask someone or to just get permission to make like very low salary. And I'm looking at the trajectory of my career and I'm like, man, if it takes me this long, like I'm never going to be able to build wealth for myself ever. Like this is just not going to work. I was working 3 jobs. I had a waitressing job. I worked at a yoga studio so that I could get free admission to the yoga studio, So it was just, I'm like, this isn't going to work. And what I said to myself was like, I'm smart. I know I'm like capable and I can figure this out. I can figure out money. I can figure out how to make money well, and build wealth. And if they're not gonna give me permission to do it, and it's like not even, they don't even want me to do it. Like the interest of the business owner is for them to build wealth and for me to make as little as possible, really, if you look at the bottom line of any business. So it just wasn't going to work for me. Instead of trying to get a seat at the table and trying to convince people I was worthwhile, I just kind of said, well, I know I'm worthwhile. I know I'm smart. And I just built my own table. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. Really, the genesis of that was that comment that I'm lightweight. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give myself permission. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's even more unfortunate to hear that your bias, those biases came actually from another woman. You would think that maybe women had more tendency to remove biases, but apparently not.
Well, I think it's important for us to like be aware of, because we can watch our own selves, right? I really try to be mindful of, the biases that I hold, that I have sort of absorbed from the culture, right? And there's another example just even recently, a couple of months ago. I have this story about my son. He's in kindergarten and we were building cubes together. And essentially he does multiplication in his head. In the process of playing this little game with him, I realized like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, 3 and 2, that's 9. I'm like, wow, you're 5, like you're brilliant, right? So I'm like super, like, this is such a cool story. So I told a friend of mine who is a male. He's works in venture capital in the city. And the first thing he said was, is your husband good at math? I told the same story to one of my female friends, who's a female entrepreneur, who's really faces biases against women all the time, talks about it, cares about it. And I told her that story. And the first thing she said back to me was, is your husband good at math?
Mm.
And I pointed this out to both of them, but in those moments, she actually came back to me a couple days later and said, I haven't stopped thinking about this. I actually had a dream about it. I feel so terrible. Like, isn't it amazing that we have that even I, as somebody who really tries to be mindful of this, and she felt terrible about it, but I don't want her to. Like, it's just that we've absorbed these things when we just want to be aware of it, right?
Yeah. So before we dive into your entrepreneurial journey, I wanted to ask you, looking back in your early, career, when you're young, would you do anything differently based on what you know today?
I don't know that I could have. There's a rate at which we have to grow up, and we can't just be grown up, Like, I can be like, oh, well, when I'm 21, I'm going to have all the wisdom I do today. I mean, that's not how it works. You have to go through, you have to bump up against things in order to figure out, oh, that's where that's how the world works. Okay. And then you do this other thing. Oh, you know, um, and if life didn't have any friction, I don't think it would be that interesting. Um, I have a creative job where, I'm involved in a lot of different startups. I'm always starting my own projects. Like, I don't really like just being safe. Like, I like experimenting, trying something different. Um, because I don't want it to be frictionless. I want to feel like I'm alive. And I do that by sort of going into new territory all the time. So I wouldn't deprive my young self of that experience.
Yeah. And it seems like that initial experience with the biases against you and, really paid very little, led you to your destiny to build your
Yeah.
own table, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, if I had been getting paid really well, I probably I just wouldn't have had the same need to do something different. What I would say though, if, in terms of like advice for, somebody who is young entering the workforce, if you're too cheerful, if you really wear really colorful clothes, like not even really colorful, like it's actually super hard to avoid because if you're a woman, it's almost, it's almost unavoidable, but I actually felt like I needed to dial down the cheerfulness. And I still, and like dial down the exclamation marks, like, be more just straightforward and, um, yeah, more serious, I guess.
Yeah, and this is unfortunate because eventually we want every woman to be herself and not to try to be something she is not.
Right? Yeah.
So tell us about how you started your business, how you built your own table.
Yeah. It took a while for me to like figure out. So my initial thought was, the App Store had just launched and smartphones and mobile apps were this super brand new. Um, baby infantile, the App Store had maybe like 50 apps in it, right? And so I wanted to create an app. I was really excited about that medium, and the impact that it could have, right? To be able to create a tool that you have on your phone that you carry with you all the time. If I want to make updates to that product I built, I could make them and ship them to you in real time all around the world, right? Which you can't do. Like if you buy a sweater, for example, you can't like change the hem of the sweater and have everybody's sweater change at the same time. That's something you can do with software. That was really exciting for me. And I had an idea for an application that I was really excited about. I raised some money. I got a great grant. And I just thought, oh, I'm going to hire an agency and they're going to design and build this product for me. And I can just hand over the money and they give me the timeline and I sit back and wait. And then they deliver a perfect product to me. That was my understanding or belief at that time. I'd never done this before. So I hired a company out of New York City. I thought, okay, well, they're definitely legit. And essentially, they sort of made promises for delivery that they didn't meet. Fast forward, it's about 10 months later. I don't have anything. They aren't returning my emails. Like, they have my money. And so I had, made these promises. Obviously this grant organization was expecting a deliverable. I had also sold real estate in the app, advertising real estate, like, and those people, I was accountable to them to deliver this product. And as somebody who is fairly type A her whole life, who does things on time, who, likes to overachieve, I was in a situation where I wasn't delivering. I was saying I was going to deliver and I wasn't. And also, like, the quality of like any little piece that they would give me was poor. And so it was honestly a dark night of the soul for me. Like, I remember laying on the grass underneath this like little tree, looking at the sky and just feeling defeated. Like, I don't really see a way out of this. I had about $20,000 left at that point. I had no product. My reputation with all these people had really gone down the tubes. Like, I was just so embarrassed because I believed this company when they said they were going to deliver something. And so I had to just figure it out. Like, I've got to deliver this thing. I made promises. If it were up to me, I would have just cut and run at that point, but it wasn't. I was obligated. And so I pieced together this development team and I figured out how to do UX, which actually I learned, like, I was born to do UX. Like, I've been interested in that my whole life without really understanding what it was. And I apprenticed with a designer out of MIT. At this point, I had moved to Boston, worked with him to figure out how to design UX. So I designed the UX UI for this product. At the time, I think I designed it in like PowerPoint, and then had it like built, sort of poorly, and then released it. So finally I get this product out. I wasn't super happy with the quality of it. It felt very mediocre. You know how, yeah. I wasn't. I was like, ugh, this could have been so much better. This is the best I could do. It's my first rodeo. And then I actually got a decent amount of traction behind it. People liked it. I got some press around it. And then, like various people on my network and in their networks, like there was people who heard about this product. These are early days in the App Store, were writing to me and saying, oh, I want to build an app too. How did you do it? And my feeling was like, I really kind of hesitated pretty hard. Like, because part of me just wanted to say, don't do it. Another part of me really believed in the medium and was really excited about, especially women and marginalized people who are not typically in tech, to be building there. I felt like that was really important. But I didn't really know how to help them do it because I wasn't really interested in doing this anymore. I wanted to create a wellness consultancy using design thinking to create these environments of well-being within workplaces. So I was trying to create this other consultancy, and then on the side, I was just helping them. It's like watching people you like, wading into a pond that is full of alligators, and it's like, okay, I know I can help you with this. And so I just sort of I was doing that to the point where I told my husband, I really have to stop helping people with software because if you chase two rabbits, don't catch neither. It's Mark Twain quote. I need to just focus on this consultancy. And he said, with all due respect, nobody wants to pay you for this consultancy. People really want to pay you for the app work. Like they want that. There's demand for it, and you're good at it. And it took me a weekend to realign myself in terms of my expectations for my own career. I didn't think of myself as a tech person, and then I was like, hey, all right, fine, I'm all in. So I built a little website, and I just started helping people. Eventually I grew a team, piece by piece, and over 15 years almost. Like, that's welcome. It's basically build the agency I wished that I had. So, really getting project management right. Really, I think I'm passionate about helping non-technical founders move into tech and really succeed, and taking that 15 years of experience launching well over 100 products, seeing under the hood of so many startups, just bringing that to bear to advise, to design, to build transparently, to deliver on time. Yeah, that's what I've been building ever since. I would say I'm accidentally in tech, but here I am. I'm deep now. Yeah.
That's an incredible story, and it seems like your life kind of led you to what you're supposed to do. Coincidentally, right? I mean, with all your experiences you shared so far, both as your earlier kind of being an employee, and also when you hired that agency and they failed you, it kind of led you to what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's that, I think it's a Buddhist story. You know that story, good luck, bad luck, nobody knows. It's I'm not gonna do it justice, but essentially it's about this farmer, and he has this great horse, and his son gets injured on the horse, and he says, good luck, bad luck, nobody knows. Like, it's this terrible accident. He said, yeah, good luck, bad luck, nobody knows. And then a war breaks out, and the army comes, and it's going to take his son to war. And he can't because he's injured.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck, bad luck, nobody knows. And the story goes on and on and on like that. And I think our lives go on and on and on like that. You just never know. Like, this is a huge setback. This feels terrible. I just lost. Who knows? Good luck, bad luck, nobody knows.
Yeah.
So
I actually heard this story. I just, when you said initially the name, it didn't sound familiar, but yes, I'm familiar with the story. And just kind of, the message here is that whatever happens for a reason. And even if it seems at time like a crisis, like a challenge, eventually there is a reason for that, and it helps us be more resilient, and in your case, kind of figure out your course and what you're supposed to do. And because we talk about, I want to talk about negotiations here in my third season. That's, my focus is, do you have any kind of tips based on your experience, right? I mean, you started your own business, you raised funds, you consult, you give services. What kind of tips you have for women that struggle with asking for money, which we know is hard, especially for women?
Yeah, I understand why it's hard to ask for more, because you might get rejected, and that feels really bad. And you just, if you know that it's you have a really good case, just ask for more. But it's like, I'm asking for more because, and you feel just really super good about it, then you have to, like, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't ask. And then also, if you get rejected, get over it, as quickly as possible. Because if it hurts too much to get rejected, then you will stop asking. So you want to like practice having that sense of disappointment and then putting it down. This is also another Zen story about walking through this mud puddle, and they pick up this woman and they carry her through and then they put her down. Do you know that story?
I don't think so.
Well, essentially at the end of it, they're walking a long ways, and the one uh the one monk says something about the woman, and that's really bothering him, and the other one says, well, we put her down 30 minutes. I put her down 30 minutes ago. Why didn't you? Look up that story, because I don't know how to tell it exactly right,
Yeah.
but it's a Buddhist story about walking through a mud puddle. And like what I always practice is like, how quickly can I put that down? Just like, am I gonna carry that pain like for days, or am I gonna just let myself really feel it for an hour, maybe two, and then get over it? Like, building resilience will really help so that you can handle more rejection, so that you can make more asks. And just be smart about those asks. I mean, I think for me, I'm now in the opposite situation, in the sense that I'm the employer. And so I know what everybody's making, and I know what is fair for people to be making. And I noticed that one of my most senior, most reliable developers had a baby and is still working part-time, so she works in the hours that work for her. She works the amount that she wants to work in order that she can take care of this, beautiful little girl. And she never asked for a raise, when her anniversary came around. And, the men who are at equal or maybe a little bit behind her were always asking for raises. And so it kept getting to the point, this happened twice, where I was like, she's earning less, even though, like, that's not really fair. And she actually has she actually knows. She's the only person other than me who knows what everybody makes, because she helps me with these sorts of reports. And she just wouldn't ask me for a raise. So there have been like twice where I've given her these giant raises where I'm like, you need to make more because this is what's fair. And she's like, well, thanks. I'm like, I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, if she doesn't want to ask, I'm going to like just give it to her anyway. But, employers are not incentivized to pay you
No.
more. In fact, their incentive is to pay you as little as possible and to keep you happy with as little as possible. So, as an employer, I really keep that in mind to make sure that there's equality in pay in my company. If you have a company, do that too. Pay attention to how much the women on your team are making and asking for, and create the equality if she's not pushing for it, So, yeah. I mean, I think like from her perspective, she's like, oh, well, I'm not working full time, and this is like, I'm just grateful that I can work even though I have a baby. Like, this is just really great for me. She just has this way of being like really positive about it, which is great for her, but it just means that also she's getting paid less than her male colleagues, and she seems she's not going to ask for more. So I don't know. I think that's something to think about.
Definitely, and I've seen that too as as a people's manager in my career, that men usually are the ones who ask for more money. They also ask for promotions, and women usually shy away from asking anything, pretty much. And I used to be that way as well, to just be a good girl, be quiet, and assume someone will notice and appreciate you and give you what you deserve. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think, something that I watch being in Silicon Valley, having a lot of conversations and relationships with tech bros. Like I'll just use that term like
Yeah.
it's I think they use that term too, you know. Um like it is really true that there is some level among many of them of like, let's make as much money as we can. And we're going to compete around who's making the most. And we're going to status signal all day long. And like money equates to value. There's like a lot of equates to personal value. And so there's a lot of hunger among them to make more and more and more and more and more. What I find among the women is, and I watch this in myself, is like I have a strong sense of enough. Like I'm not always trying, like I'm not trying to be a billionaire. I'm not trying to be 100 millionaire. Like it's whereas like just about everybody I know in tech, it really is, you know. And I think like if I think about myself and I think about this, like for me, once I reach a certain amount of revenue or profit, I start investing. And, you know, I'm like, I don't need that much more money to live my beautiful life. Like, you know, so I'm gonna start investing in other people's projects. I'm gonna start investing in my team's creative ideas. Um, and I noticed this with this employee where she really has a sense of like, well, it's great that I get to make, you know, it's good money anyway. It's great that I get to make this much money and I get to have time and location freedom and I get to take care of my child, you know. And it's like, yeah, but you know, you're just as good a developer as this person. So like on an hourly basis, you should be making as much as them, you know. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, I think women have a sense of enough and sometimes men don't. It gets really dicey and dangerous and feels a little unsafe to talk about differences between men and women right now, you know, so I want to be careful about generalizations, but that's just something I've observed.
Yeah, and I would just say that it's okay to want certain things in life, right? If you mentioned your employee, she really appreciate the flexibility you give her, ability to work part-time while raising her baby girl. That's great, but still, I mean,
But I
doesn't
get
mean
that to
that it has.
everybody.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the men who are
absolutely.
making more money than her have the same flexibility. They work full time, but like, I don't think that it's about the quality of the work, you know, your efficiency. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And before we end our episode, what else do you want to share with our audience that maybe I haven't asked you?
I think mostly keep your eyes open, and sometimes keep your eyes open in terms of the adventure of the life that you're on. In some points, you might have what feels like a major setback. You might, um, you will find yourself, I think, more often when you're younger, less often as you get older, in these transition periods, also known as liminal space, these sort of, you know, where what was before is no longer good and you don't know what's going to come next. And so you find yourself when you're in liminal space, it's really kind of painful because there's a lack of clarity around it. Go really easy on yourself and trust that eventually, looking back, all those dots are going to connect and it will make sense. And you'll see, oh, wow, that got me to this really great place. But you don't want to rush to be older, right? Like, so just go for the ride, feel all the feelings, um, do the best you can with what you have, and just be open to, like, I don't know what you want to call it, but just be open to the accidents that happen. You know, follow the energy, follow what feels good, lights you up. and see what happens. I think life should be an adventure. It shouldn't be like an easy road, no fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you so much, Lindsey. I really enjoyed talking with you today. And before we end, how can people find you and your company?
Yeah, so I have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Follow our newsletter. So I
Okay.
write there. Yeah, I go to LinkedIn, look me up, Lindsey Witmer Collins. I have my newsletter. It's monthly, and it's like a roundup of the articles that we've written. I write for Forbes and also Inc.com. I write on my own blog. I'm writing a lot about AI, data security. We're in a big shift in tech right now, and so I write about that and kind of what to pay attention to. I especially want people to follow my newsletter if you're not in tech, so that you can kind of know what's going on and how it's relevant to you, and what you might want to think about moving forward. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'll put information about your LinkedIn profile and your newsletter for people to follow. Thank you so much for being here today, Lindsey.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening for another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Lindsey Witmer Collins. And as always, please share your feedback and what you would like us to cover in future episodes. Before you go, I wanted to share about next week's episode, and I'll be interviewing Barbara Spitzer. She is a highly respected advisor to boards and CEOs, and she is also the founder and CEO of Two Rivers Partners. Barbara will share her incredible insights on authentic leadership and negotiation strategies, especially designed to help you navigate and thrive in the tech industry. We'll discuss practical tips on advocating for yourself, building strong professional relationships, and the power of self-awareness. You don't want to miss this episode. So, please make sure to follow or subscribe From a Woman to a Leader to get notified as soon as the episode drops. See you next week. Bye-bye.